Hello, and we are live. So I am Danielle Reynolds. If you caught me yesterday, I'm one of the advisory board members for Nonepub, and this is my coworker, David. We both work at GPI. So before we start, we're going to do a little intro. So like I mentioned, I'm Danielle. I have a Chicago playtest group that is currently on Discord, but they're going to be moving back to the in-person. So I sadly will not be there because I moved out here to Springfield, Mass. I also am one of the Board Game Broad admins, as well as a game designer. And then David?
Yeah, I am David Blanchard with Grand Prix International, GPI. I am the Vice President of Business Development. I've been at the company for about 15 years now. I've seen a lot from people just getting started in the industry to working with large companies that are scaling to the next level, mass market, hobby, you name it. So happy to be here today and talk about all the things that you need to know about getting your game published.
Yeah. Sweet. So what we're going to be doing today is a lovely role play. David is going to be doing his job, and I am going to be that super excited designer that has this amazing game, and I want to self-publish. But we want to know, how is that going to look, and just like how to design with manufacturing in mind. So hopefully you'll get a lot out of this.
All right. Ready to dive in, Danielle? We'll put on our role playing hat.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And just as a disclaimer, this is GPI and how we do it here. It might be different between other manufacturers, but it's a good concept in general for you to learn.
Great point. We're trying to be helpful, and we're going to answer. I'll answer questions on behalf of GPI, not on behalf of all manufacturers. You could get different answers from anyone that you work with. There's a lot of great ones out there, but we'll be answering for GPI, and hopefully you'll get a lot of good information out of this.
Yep.
All right. So Danielle, it's nice to meet you.
Oh my God, it's nice to meet you too. Our email I'm just so excited. I'm sorry, I just can't.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you are. Tell me about this game that you're thinking about publishing that you've designed.
So this game is called Tapas. I came up with it because, I don't know, it was just like a really trendy thing. Everybody wants these like little foods, and I thought it would be really cool. So I decided to match it with some dice. And I designed this game during quarantine. So I've been playtesting it I have a local group that I put online. And so we've been playtesting it there and through some other things. But because my prototype has been really only online, I want to like try to get it as close in person, that physical copy, as I can to the digital version. And I'm not sure like how easy that's going to be, but I can tell you like everything that my game is made up of. So here I can like really quickly pull up my website, and it'll show like all the contents and stuff, so you get a better idea of like what all it is that this game is.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So this is Tapas.
Okay.
I really wanted to have kind of that like boom in your face table presence. If you can kind of tell, like there's different bowls and plates, and there's some dice, and you can kind of read the components. But yeah, I guess where do we start? Like, do I just tell you the different things, what I want?
Yeah, so in order for us to give you a quote, we're going to need to get into some details. You've got the basics here, and we can talk through each thing line by line, but we'll need a little bit more information on each component in order to provide you with accurate pricing. For example, you've got, let's see here, D6 dice saying what colors they are, but we'll need to talk about if they're custom, with custom fonts or anything like that, or if they're a different size from the standard 16 millimeter. So let's just drill into it little by little, and I'll take some notes. I'm not going to give you a price right now over the phone, but with the details that come up through our discussion, I'll be able to work with one of our project managers here at GPI to get it all quoted for you.
All right, sounds good. Yeah. What do you want to know first?
Well, let's see here. Let's start with the packaging, because I don't see anything listed here on like your box and the size that it should be. Have you thought about that?
No, not really. I mean, I'm hoping that this could eventually go into like retail. So what would you recommend? Because like I want it to pop, and I want it to be like on a Target or a Barnes Noble would be the dream, but I don't know, because most likely it'll probably end up in like a local game store, and my Kickstarter's houses.
You're right, and because you are going to crowdfund this as well.
I am. Yeah, I'm hoping to use Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Okay.
So,
Well, we might want to circle back to the box size and
okay.
talk through the components, because a lot of the components that I'm seeing here too also could be really expensive, or they could be simplified so that they're more of a mass market price.
Okay.
So the reason I'm not answering the initial question that I brought up is because if this is going to be Kickstarter only, and you think you're going to be unlocking stretch goals and coming up with a real deluxe version of the game,
Sure.
then the sky's the limit of what we can put in here and what you can sell the game for. However, if
Mhm.
you are going to be designing with retail in mind, then we should use that to kind of guide the conversation and figure out how these components are going to hit your target
Okay.
um, manufacturing costs, so that it hits an MSRP that's reasonable for this type of game.
Okay. I think like between $20 to $30 is probably what I'm thinking for this. I don't know
Okay.
if that's reasonable, but that just like seems like a good sweet spot. I definitely don't think this game is a $40 game.
Okay, well, that's great to know.
Yeah.
So there's a few like rule of thumbs that can be useful to you as you're developing other games.
Yeah.
What GPI does is custom manufacturing. So we don't work off of a template of card sheet sizes or standard box sizes or anything like that. Whatever you dream up and want to produce, we can do. But there are certain things that are pretty basic that can help with coming up with some approximate costs as you're developing, so that you're not totally developing your concept in a vacuum. And then
Okay.
when you go to get it quoted, you're like, oh my God, I thought this thing I could retail for $20, but it's going to cost me $12 to manufacture it. I mean, those margins obviously would not work.
Sure.
For cards, if you've got, let's see here, 25 order cards, is that right? Are they
Yeah.
like standard poker card size, like 2.5 by 3.5 inch?
They are, yeah. So I mean, technically I only need 20, but I added an extra 5 so there's more variability because it's like a 4-player game and you're gonna end up having one of each of the color cards that you can kind of see the different colors.
Okay, and if those are just 4 color cards, full color on each side,
Yeah.
good rule of thumb, it's not an exact science, but it's a way that I cost things out roughly when I'm talking to people on the phone and stuff. It's like a penny a card. So if you've got 25 cards, that could represent about 25 cents worth of manufacturing costs right there.
Cool.
And a retail box, again, we haven't really decided what that's going to be, but since you're talking, you said $20 to $30 retail, you're probably going to want to follow a standard retail footprint size, something that's common already in the marketplace, either a 10.5 by 10.5 by 2 inch
Mm-hmm.
box, or something that's more like the Munchkin games, like the regular Munchkin games, or code names, which are like 6.25 by 9.75, or vice versa, around there.
Yeah.
Um, there could be an insert tray or a vacuum form tray to hold the components, and
Mm-hmm.
and that packaging could run anywhere from like 50 cents for a very simple box to over $1, depending on what you want to do on the packaging for like coatings and fancy things like hot stamping and foil and stuff like that. So
Okay.
um, those are some approximate costs that I'll just give you right off the bat here.
Sure.
But I'm seeing here that you've got some plastic pieces, is it? I mean, they look like custom shapes to me in these images.
Yeah. So the bowls are plastic bowls, and I have 6 of them,
Mhm.
and they're 2 blue, 2 red, 2 green. And then what you see is like the little food shapes on the inside. I mean, I just kind of like took an image in tabletop and like made it really fat. So it just looks like a really, really chunky. It looks plastic in this, but I was guessing it probably be more like a chipboard. But
Okay.
also, plastic would be really cool if we could do like custom shapes, like a hi ho Cheerio. Like when you're a little kid, you play that game. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
would be really cool. Would that be something that we could do? That's in my range.
Well, it's certainly something that we could do, but it's going to be expensive. It might be ballooning the cost outside of the price range, because let's focus on the bowls for a second. You said
Sure.
there's like 2 each of 3 different colors.
Yes.
Would they
They're
all
all the
be
same size.
all the same size
Yeah.
bowl? Okay, so that's good. So like we could make a custom mold for those plastic bowls which
Okay.
would be, in the ballpark of $2,500 to $3,000. It's a one-time tooling cost. So like once we build a custom mold for you, that's yours. You own it. We don't use it for any other projects for any other customers.
Okay.
And then we can basically run that mold in the red, and then run it in the green, and run it in the blue. So that's good.
Sure.
But if you don't need like a custom design bowl,
Mhm.
there might not be a need for a custom mold. We might be able to find and source some plastic bowls on the open market overseas.
And so there wouldn't be a tooling cost then since it's coming from somewhere else?
Exactly. So it would save you that $2,500 to $3,000, $2,500 to $3,000, because we'd just be buying a stock item from a factory. And we could customize it with a specific color that you want. But it
Sure.
might be a cheaper option to consider if you don't have anything specific on those bowls that has to be designed a specific way for your game in order for it to work.
No,
Sound-
I mean, honestly, I'd be fine with whatever we can find. The only thing is I want them to match the dice as close as possible.
Okay.
Because I have 4 different colored dice. I have them in red, green, blue, and then also black, but black doesn't need a bowl color.
Okay.
So if I could get those like semi-close, like as close as possible, I think that would help the game.
Well, when you listed off those colors for the dice, I'm going to kind of drill down into that a little bit further.
Sure.
There's different materials that we can make dice in.
Okay.
Urea is the cheaper option, and it's not cheap quality, it's just cheap cost-wise. But we only have standard colors available to us, and those are
Mhm.
like black, white, ivory, red, yellow, green, blue, and actually yellow is only available part of the time because there's large MOQs for the raw materials in those
Oh.
specific colors. So you listed off colors that match some of those. So do you need a custom Pantone color for those? Because if you did, we'd have to use a more expensive acrylic material.
I mean, no, but I kind of was hoping that I could end up getting my game's dice to kind of look like the Sagrada dice. They're little like see-through fancy, but I guess like I'm trying to do a Kickstarter, so that could be one of my goals I could unlock, I guess.
Bingo. So what you could do is, especially when people are Kickstarting, I love to tell them, quote out the game like 2 different ways. Start with, find the manufacturer or manufacturers that you want to get costs from, have your bill of materials written out, and have them written out for 2 versions of the game. One is like, all right, we just barely hit our goal, and we know that we can fund a manufacturing round just by hitting our goal, but we didn't unlock all the deluxe things that we had set up as stretch goals.
Sure.
But at least you have a quote from the manufacturer for that version of the game. Then also get another quote for like the deluxe, like what if everything is unlocked? And then that way, as the campaign continues, you know what your absolute bottom line cost is going to be if you just barely eke out the funding, or if you unlock everything, and the difference between a Toyota and a Lexus kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could start the quote with the opaque urea dice for the colors that you want, but maybe we can put together a different version of the quote that has transparent injection molded acrylic with custom note numbers, and then you can see the difference when you compare in price when you compare the quote side by side.
And does it matter if I have like the dots like pips on it versus the number?
Doesn't matter
the molds
wise really.
Okay.
We GPI owns a number of open molds, polyhedrals, spot dice in various sizes, like going as small as like 5 millimeter miniature spot dice, and up to I don't know, forget.
Why did anybody need that? Like, why would you need that small a die?
Why would you not need that small a die?
All right, that's fair.
So yeah, I think that'd be a good way to approach the dice. The cost of the dice is looking at 2 different options for 2 different versions of your quote.
Perfect. So yeah, urea for standard and acrylic.
Right.
Perfect. Awesome.
All right.
for the acrylic, we're going to be able to find a similar color to those bowls that we're open sourcing.
Yeah, with acrylic, we're able to use any Pantone color
That's so
possible.
cool.
So that's good. And again, if you aren't able to do that, we'd have to choose one of those 7 colors that are available for urea that it would just be opaque. And there's
Okay.
some cool effects we can do with urea, but you can't do the transparent or translucent
Yeah.
glitter, or you can't do a lot of the cool things that you can do with injection molded acrylic.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. What else is in your game?
So I have those tokens that are going to be going inside of the bowls. We
Okay.
could talk about that probably next. My guess is
Yeah.
it'll be chipboard, since you said it's going to be quite a bit more if I were to do my own plastic ones. But just so I get an idea, if I were to want to make that as like a deluxe version, how would I go about making custom plastic pieces for like this? So I have 6 different food types.
Okay.
So do like the 6 different ones. Is it cheaper or like better to do it like all the same color and then have them like painted? Or is it better to do it like all of them as their own different colors? Like, could you walk me through that process?
Absolutely. So if you've got 6 different shapes and they all have to be, each shape has to be a different color, that's 6 different molds. And I mentioned the cost earlier, like that really adds up, right?
Yeah.
So a way to get around that is to do a family mold, where as long as we're able to, we got to check with the tooling department to see if it's possible. But if all the pieces are similar size, shape, and size and weight, we should be able to combine them all on a family mold.
Cool.
But in that case, the plastic is all going to be the same color. And maybe that will work for some games where the shapes are unique enough that it doesn't matter that they're not different colors. But an option could be to paint some of the plastic pieces in the colors that you want. But we've already got plastic bowls in this game. You got a lot of plastic pieces. You got cards, you got packaging, and it looks like some die cut pieces and a meatball, dice, and you're trying to hit a $20 to $30 retail. I think that based on what I'm seeing right now, you might want to consider using die cut chipboard for the food pieces instead.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people ask me questions. If you allow me to go off on a tangent here,
go for it. Yeah.
A lot of people ask about, well, yeah, I've got die cut tokens or punch out pieces. What's the sheet size? Do I just need to tell you the sheet size? And but the way we work is actually it's not any more expensive to have the pieces pre-punched out and polybagged. And the reason for that is we're able to, if we get individual files, artwork files for those die cut pieces, and we're allowed to lay them out on sheets as we need to, we can maximize the amount of pieces that we can fit on a sheet. Whereas if you tell me the die cut sheet has to be 10 inches by 10 inches, we might not have the flexibility of laying out those 10-inch by 10-inch squares on a giant printed sheet at the factory. So it's all about efficiencies, right? So even though it seems like it would be more expensive to have them pre-punched out because of the additional labor involved, we're usually gaining so many efficiencies by having the flexibility of laying them out so that we can cram a bunch onto one sheet without having a bunch of wasted material. That's usually more cost effective to do it that way.
Oh, that's good to know. And so I could get the 6 different types in their own little baggies if that's the direction I want to go with, like packaging.
Yeah, 6 little baggies, or dump them all in one baggie.
Okay.
And you don't have specifications here, but typically it's usually like a 2mm thick chipboard that has paper laminated on both sides of it, full color printed, and then some kind of coating. Either the standard aqueous coating, which is more.
So I actually had an opinion on the coating because this game, since it's done so well just online, on just all the screenshots, people get like very enthusiastic about the look of it. So I know that this game is going to do really well on Instagram. That's where all my followers are right now. That's like where I'm getting my people, that when I, do my Kickstarter, that's where they're all at.
Okay.
And so I do not want any kind of like glossy shininess. I was thinking like a matte finish.
Okay. So with matte varnishes on boxes and on cards and on die cut pieces, you've got a couple options.
Okay.
One thing that's really popular right now that a lot of publishers are doing is they're laminating their boxes with a PP laminate. It's a matte lamination, excuse me. And
Yeah.
they do that because they're usually adding an extra layer on top of spot UV or
Okay.
spot gloss. So I know you said you don't want gloss, but what looks really good and what a bunch of games that you probably have on your shelf already probably have is this matte lamination with a spot UV. That way the light catches that spot UV when you want it to. It makes it pop on shelf at retail or on Instagram
Okay.
in beauty shots. So if you wanted to do that, we could do that. That obviously is adding some additional steps to the manufacturing process.
Sure.
So it's a little bit more expensive. But if you don't want to go that deluxe route, we can still give you a matte varnish, which is an actual liquid coating that gets applied and doesn't have the glossy finish at all. So maybe that's a good way to meet in the middle between what's standard, what's deluxe, and you getting the aesthetic that you want.
And then can I use that on the cards so they all kind of match on the like chipboard tokens?
Yes, you can.
Yep. I can. Okay. Yep. Cool. Because I think I would want to go that route. I mean, either that or like, what is poker cards? What is that?
There's a poker varnish and there's
of course.
Yeah. And that's pretty specific to poker cards. But when you talk to us about what you're looking for, don't be afraid of just referring to stuff that you know, and you don't need to know the technical term. Just be like, I want the coating that poker cards use.
Yeah,
like we can figure that out. Or I want the type of box finish that the op used.
I do like the cards. I think they're Unstable Unicorn. They have like a little pattern and like a texture to it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's right for this game, but my next game would be really cool with it. What is that one called?
Yeah, it's a linen finish that gets added to the cards. Yeah.
Can you get like any design, or is it just like a set standard? Because I feel like it's not honeycombs, but almost like a checkered pattern. I don't even remember. I need to like hold it again, but it was pretty cool.
I will say that different manufacturers have different linen finishes. So if there's a specific one that you want, we could see if it matches the one that we have, and if not, we could see if we can find a way to match it. But yeah, not all linen finishes are created equal.
Well, that seems realistic to life.
All right, let's see here. I didn't mean to get us too off topic with the specs. I want to go back to that. Regular meeple, or is that a custom shape? Just kind of just running meeple.
I'm thinking maybe start with a normal meeple. Okay. But ideally what I love is it's supposed to be like a first player marker, and I thought it would be really, really cool if it was like a little like dude that kind of was holding like a tray, like he's gumming around, like giving people their food. And then I could like print on both sides of him and stuff, and like put him in a little tuxedo or something, like a real fancy snazzy outfit.
Yeah, that sounds cool. It also sounds a little bit more expensive than your average run-of-the-mill meeple. But again, it's one of those things that we could quote out both ways.
Okay.
Both options, yeah.
How do they print the meeple on like both sides?
That's usually pad printing or tampo printing.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can get some pretty good detail. We've got examples here of stuff that we've done in the past, which I'd be happy to send you links to, photos of, or even some samples if you want. We can send you a good care package.
Ooh,
because
I
you
like
don't
that.
have things behind you.
I mean, is there ever enough games in the world?
Exactly. Good answer.
Let's see. Besides those things, I also have 4 garbage tokens. So they're going to just be like chipboard. That, or I guess maybe I might be able to get away with like a card, but it'd be a custom shape. So, I wouldn't want it to slide around. So maybe maybe doing the chipboard with the like mat would be good. But I don't necessarily need it as chunky as the tokens that I'm doing inside the bowl, because
Okay.
it's just really going to lay there, and then I'll put tokens on top of it, because in the game, if you like over order and you can't like use it because it doesn't go on a card, it goes in the trash. So
Okay.
you're trying to like manage like what you're grabbing.
Yeah, we can use a really heavy cardstock or something like that. That's just die cut in the shape that you want.
Would it slide around though, or is there like a special? Would the mat make it not slide so much? That would be my only concern. I don't want like someone to get up off the table and like fly away from you.
Yeah, I think the matte varnish would help with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And again, we can choose the heavy stocks that has more weight to it, that won't just blow away when someone gets up from the table.
So then, okay, for the actual playing cards, what is the standard card stock? So if I wanted something like an Exploding Kittens, or really just any of those, the Unstable Unicorn, or like I don't want trivia, because I feel like trivia cards are so flimsy and like they'll break.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you're. The reason trivia cards are usually flimsy is because that kind of card stock is appropriate to the type of game that's being played. So it's totally appropriate for that kind of card.
Sure.
And that's usually like a 260 GSM gray core. And when I say GSM, I don't know how familiar you are with the terminology, but that's grams per square meter. So that's like the weight of the card, and it's how we measure the thicknesses. But really the weight. But that works. The 260 GSM gray core works for trivia, because it's like you take the card out of the box, you read the question in the crowd, and then you put the card away, and that's it. It doesn't get touched or played again usually. Whereas other games like the Exploding Kittens and things like that, they're usually using and Unstable Unicorns. Those types of games that are being shuffled a lot. It's usually like a 300 GSM C2S cardstock or white core. Some factories refer to it as. There's the Arjo Wiggins 305 GSM black core, which gets sourced specifically from Europe, and that's the Magic the Gathering type of cardstock. And some manufacturers use that exclusively. Some factories, it's really expensive. But throughout my experience, I found the 300 GSM C2S or white core to be a really good, appropriate cardstock to use in a lot of different types of games, and not expensive, not break the bank.
Okay, so that's probably the way I want to go, because I know with like Kickstarters, they're all about the stretch goal, but I also, if I like barely fund or just like kind of overfund, I want to have a good game. Like I don't want it to be the cheapest of the cheap just to like fund. Like if I'm going to fund, I want to have a good game, and then it'll just be like slightly better quality or whatever past that. So with the 300, I think that's a good choice versus like going cheap.
Okay. All right. That's the way we'll quote it then.
Okay. Awesome. And then I have a rule book. I mostly have it written out. I think it'll be like maybe 4 pages, but I guess it depends on like the box size. Like, how do you normally like figure out how big the rules and stuff should be?
Well, usually you want to have it fill the box and not be this weird thing that's just like loose. And and I know we still got to get back to talking about the box size too. But I got an idea. Something just popped in my head, and I don't want to lose it. You said the rules aren't quite finished yet. Is your artwork completed for the game? Have you already like done all that work?
So yes, mostly, because I am a graphic designer, so I've like done the artwork myself.
You did it yourself. What kind of graphic design have you done? Like for print or for web?
So technically, yes, but in this case, no. I have never done anything for print. Everything has just been like online ads.
Oh, okay. Are you sure that you know how to design for print? Because there are some things that are different. For instance, you should be designing all your artwork in 4-color CMYK and not RGB.
Okay.
And I'll be 300 DPI as well.
So the 300 I didn't know, but I did know the CMYK from college. Some of it's stuck in here still.
All right. Yeah, those are really important, that the artwork files we get from you are actually print ready files. And we can accept source files that are Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator or InDesign,
Sure.
or just print ready PDFs, but they've
Okay.
got to be 4-color CMYK and 300 DPI.
Sure.
Yeah.
What, like, how would I send it to you? And like, what do I need to do beyond that? Like, is there a set of rules that you could like send me? So I
Yeah.
checklist maybe?
Yeah, we've got a sheet that I can send you after this call,
Okay.
and it'll be a checklist of things to make sure that is included on your game, like on the box. Like if you're going to go to retail, are you going to get a barcode?
Sure.
If you're going to go to retail, the answer is yes. You need a barcode. Little things that could often be overlooked. It's got to say "Made in China" on it. It's got to have your company address on it, or your distributor's address if it's being distributed in another country. Little things like that you should think about including. So I can send that over to you after the call, so you can go through that.
And do you guys do safety testing? Because I mean, I know that depending on like the age range of the game, you have to get that done. Is that something you guys can help me with?
Absolutely. So when we're manufacturing the game, just as the final assembly starts, we're going to pull games off the assembly line and get them over to a third-party lab so that they can be safety tested. So you've just got to tell me where you're planning on distributing the games, and obviously we need to know what the age grading is for the game so that we can test to the appropriate safety standards for those regions. So if it's in the U.S. only and it's an adult party game for ages like 17 and up, then you don't technically have to get safety testing done. But I would recommend it because if you're planning on going to retail, it's still something that some retailers might ask for.
That's good to know. So since I don't know if it's going to go to retail, but I'm hoping that down the line it would, is it better to try to like get all those testings and everything done just in case and like make sure to have the artwork set for that?
Yeah, and I'm not sitting here trying to spend your money or anything like that, but it is just more efficient and smarter to have all your ducks in a row, so that
Sure.
if an opportunity comes up and Barnes and Noble is going to take your game, you don't have to figure out like, oh crap, I didn't get any safety testing, and now that they won't take it unless I do, and I got to find a lab, and now it's going to be more expensive because I'm getting it done in the States instead of overseas, and
Oh, geez.
there's going to be expedited fees. So anything that you
Okay.
can do to get your ducks in a row ahead of time, the better.
Okay. Sweet. That sounds good. And
Mm-hmm.
then what is like the timeline normally for getting all this done? So once you give me that paper and I check all my art and I send it over to you,
Yeah.
what are we looking at as far as just like how long before I get a sample right before I like hit print on however many copies?
Yeah, you sure do. And how? Just curious, how long were you hoping to have games in hand?
I
Like,
mean,
how long before you have them in hand were you hoping?
I was really hoping to get it to my backers by like Christmas.
By this?
So
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. So I guess like probably I'd needed what, November or end of
November? Get
September
started in
maybe?
November?
No,
No,
no, no,
no.
no. Like get it all here.
Okay, yeah, get it
So
here.
yeah,
Okay,
get it here.
yeah,
Yeah, and like
yeah.
probably like September because I'm guessing it needs to go to a bunch of other places and stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know, honestly.
Let's walk through the timelines. So
Please.
first step that we're talking about right now is the quote. Obviously, you give us the information, and I got my notes from this call, and we're gonna get a quote for you. And if I give you the quote and everything looks good, and you want to use us, we're gonna get you die lines based
Okay.
on the dimensions of all the materials that are in the quote. So if it's in a 20 by 20 game board that folds down to 10 by 10, we're going to get you die lines for a 20 by 20 game board that folds down to 10 by 10. Then you can lay your artwork out on that. So when you give us the order and the artwork that is on our die lines, then we're going to make one-time tooling samples.
Okay.
So I mentioned the cost of the molds before. There's going to be setup charges for printing materials, color separation fees, any die cut molds. Like it sounds like we're going to be doing custom die cut pieces for your game.
Yeah.
Those aren't very expensive. But those are all one-time tooling costs that you will have to pay in order for us to create some tooling samples, which some people refer to as like prototypes, but they're handmade mock-ups of the complete game that gets sent to you
Okay.
before we do any production.
And just a quick question. So if I ended up going with the custom like wooden meeple of the little meeple holding a tray,
Mm-hmm.
is that a tooling cost? Like how does wood work?
Yeah, wood, well, it depends. If it's just regular meeple, we're going to source it most likely, or just get it from our regular supplier.
Okay.
But there could be some low tooling costs associated with wood as well. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Um, let's see here. So we're talking lead times. I was starting to talk about price. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Um,
all good.
So if it's just printed materials and we're not talking about custom die cut molds or custom injection molds or anything like that, or die cast metals,
Yeah.
We can turn around those tooling samples to you in about 3 weeks from when you hand over the artwork to us.
Mm-hmm.
Once if there are custom plastics and all that, which there are for your project, then it's more like 30 days. From when we get all the files, because it takes a while to make those steel molds.
Sure.
But we will get you, in the end, a full mock-up sample of your complete game, usually a couple of them, usually about 3,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can use them for glamour shots for the Kickstarter page, and samples to play test, samples for media, things
Okay.
like that. And once that tooling stage is over, which we'll use the conservative estimate of 30 days, assuming there's custom plastics in it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you approve the tooling sample that we give you, then we
Sure.
start production. And production can range from like 45 to 60 days, depending
Okay.
on what month of the year. So peak season at this point is really like the majority of the year. So I often just tell my customers to just be conservative with the estimates and just assume that it will take a full 60 days
Okay.
for the production. And then at the end of production, as I said, with tooling, that's when testing. That's when we pull the samples off the line, send them to the third-party lab. We send samples to you as well for approval, so that we're not shipping anything
Okay.
until we have sign-off from you in the lab that the products are safe from the lab and that they match what you wanted. At that point, once we get those approvals, then we can coordinate the freight.
Oh my God, please tell me you can do that.
We can. We certainly can. So what I can't do is the warehousing and order fulfillment for you. But if you have someone already in mind that you're going to use for your warehousing and order fulfillment, I can get it from the factory in a container across the ocean and to the final destination of your warehouse.
And if I don't have someone in mind, do you have recommendations or something?
I have some recommendations. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of people that provide the service, and there's pros and cons for a number of them, but we can certainly make referrals to people that we have heard good things about that our customers have used in the past.
Awesome. Thanks. And how long does it normally take if it's getting shipped over? Like if it was coming over to the US, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Danielle, that's an interesting question. Normally that would take 30 days, regardless of 35 days, regardless of where it was going in the States. However, in classic 2020/2021 fashion, the global state of freight right now is a complete nightmare. And costs for containers have gone up 100%. They've doubled in the last year. And the lead times are now twice as long. So what used to be 30 to 35 days is now around 60 days to get a container from the Hong Kong ocean port to warehouse door, which is crazy. There's a number of things that contributed to it, which would be like an entire call in and of itself to talk about that. But we're not sure if it's getting better or not. Right now, that's the state of things right now, and we're hoping that things will improve. But because this is an anomaly, we've never seen a cost this high before.
Sure.
And I mean, what was $8,000 for a full container, a 40-foot container, It used to be about $8,000 or
Yeah.
7,000. Now it's 14, 16, 18, some are 20, 22,000, depending on how much overland trucking there are. So it's a bit crazy. And all these things that I'm saying about these freight costs, factor that into your cost of the product.
Yeah.
Especially if you're kickstarting, we're going to give you a manufacturing quote that's going to list your one-time tooling costs that you pay once, and if you ever reorder it, you don't have to pay those again.
Sure.
And we'll give you the manufacturing costs per game, and our minimum order quantity is 5,000 complete games.
Sure.
And then there will be a cost for the safety testing, which depending on how much stuff we've got to test and all the different materials and all the different ink colors and stuff like that, it could be a few hundred, it could be a few thousand, but we'll get it ahead of time.
Sure.
And then there's the cost of the freight and shipping it here, which I just said is around 20 grand right now. It's crazy.
So for me, would you recommend, because like with Kickstarter, I can either factor it partially into my game and then also have like a set amount, or later on I can charge during the, like, if I use like backer kit or something. Is it better to do that to see if I can wait out and see if things change with everything going on with that 2020, 21? Like, we don't know what's happening with freight.
I mean, that's a call that you've got to determine based on your comfort level with the situation. But I think that offering free freight is appealing to a lot of people. Obviously, I mean, I always try to fill up my carts to get. That's when I'm shopping as a consumer.
Oh, I use Amazon all the time. I'm like, oh, 2-day shipping, sure.
We're all programmed for free freight at this point, so I get the appeal to offer it, but just keep in mind, if you do offer it, just keep in mind how much that freight cost is actually adding to your landed cost.
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched on what the third-party warehouse and order fulfillment company is going to be charging to ship out the games to backers, because the games that I'm making for you are going to ship to the States in corrugated brown boxes, and usually like 4 or 6 games to a carton, or if it's a small game, we can do like 12 or 16 or whatnot. That's just the industry standard for retail, are those quantities, which means those boxes are going to show up at the warehouse, and then somebody at the warehouse is going to take one game out of the box, put it in another box, slap a label on it to the backer, maybe throw in some stretch goal stuff, and each thing that they touch, usually there's a cost associated with it, plus the cost of the box, plus the cost of the shipping to the backer. So when you get those tooling samples, especially, you're going to want to weigh the samples and measure them and start digging into what the costs are going to be to ship those to backers. And if I'm in Maine and my warehouse is in Maine and I'm shipping to Hawaii, what's the cost of doing that? That's your worst case scenario that you can be working off of. But yeah, that all those things really add up, especially right now.
So when I am deciding on my box size, besides just like what it's going to look like in retail, does the box size contribute much to just like shipping costs as well? Like how big, or because I've noticed a lot of boxes just have like a lot of air in there.
Yeah, and they're like that for shelf presence.
I
mean, the reason game boxes are usually the standard sizes is for a good reason, right? If it's going to retail, a retailer usually has to take something off the shelf in order to put a new game in its place.
Sure.
So following a standard footprint is usually a good thing to do. I always recommend making them as tight and packed as possible with components and not having a lot of air in there. I know that creates a box that's usually smaller. However, I mean, you're paying for that air that you're shipping. Depending on your order quantity, if it's a really big box, you might only be able to fit a few thousand in a container. And that container could cost, let's just say $20,000 as a rough number right now, right? Yeah. And let's say I can only get 10,000 games in that container. But if I shrink the box size down to fit the components as tight as possible, and I cut the size down in half, I can probably double the amount of games that I can fit in that same container, and it's still going to cost $20,000. So my amortized shipping cost is much better.
Wow. I would have never even thought about that, honestly.
No.
That's why you're here.
That's why we're
And then if I was to try to get it to like different countries,
Mhm.
how would that work? Especially if, so say my Kickstarter just blows up and I have some people that are willing to translate it because most of it doesn't have like any text, just the cards do. So not be that hard to make a Spanish version or a German version. How would that work? Like if I wanted to print out a few different versions of the game in different languages, is that, how does that work with the quoting?
It's pretty simple. We could gang the production run together so that we're ordering materials across all the different language versions. And really, the only thing that's going to change is the artwork, right, for each different language. So there would be like color separation fees for an English version, and whatever other version you'd have to pay for new films for each other language version. But by ganging the production run together, and running it all together at once, you're at least getting some price breaks because it's a much larger total production quantity than just running, 2,500 or 5,000, excuse me, in one language 1 month, and then 4 months later saying, oh, now I got a company in Germany that wants them, and I need to hit the MOQ and run 5,000. If we ran them together, we'd be making 10,000. You'd get a little bit of a price break that way.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And then as far as like, so in my box, if I wanted to like get fancy, I could do plastic insert.
Yep. Plastic vacuum.
Can you design that for me, or is that something that I would need to put together like a CAD file and send to you?
You do not need a CAD file. If you want to be like crazy technical about it, you certainly can. But I've worked off of like cocktail napkins and computer paper sketches. It's pretty basic, or even I've designed them in MS Paint on the fly. So you just need to know what goes in what cavity, right? But we can figure out how to lay everything out appropriately. If you just tell me I want a vacuum form tray to hold everything, I don't care how or what goes in what cavity, then we can figure out how to design it so that everything fits and that there is a least amount of air in there as possible. And so now we're kind of talking full circle about how we started this conversation in box size.
Yeah.
So in talking over the course of this conversation, it's sounding like based on the retail price and the components in the game, you're going to want to follow a standard footprint, perhaps like a 10.5 by 10.5 box, because you are going to retail. And if at all possible, maybe even smaller, like something that's like Munchkin size or Codename size. If we can fit everything in there.
I think if I have the board that can fold over and the like little bowls will fit, I don't think there will be an issue.
Yeah.
So now you've been saying like a side, like the thickness of the game. Is there a standard for that too?
Not as much.
Not as much? Okay.
You don't want to do anything really thin because then it will fall
off. Yeah.
And if you go like too deep, then they won't be able to fit as many games on the shelf. So usually it's like 2 inches to 3 inches. But there's certainly so many exceptions to the rule. I'm talking about standard footprints as like what are the most common.
Yeah.
There's so many different games out there and different box sizes. Several years ago, I did the Ogre Designer Edition for Steve Jackson Games, which had a box that was large enough for my small child to crawl into.
Wait, did you actually take a picture of that?
I sure did.
That's even better than a cat.
I'll have to show you that. Yeah. We didn't close it. There were no air holes. That would be irresponsible. But yeah. So the point is, boxes can be any shape and size depending on how they're being distributed and where they're being retailed. But if you're worried about costs, especially right now, I say to keep it as tight and packed as possible so that you're not shipping a lot of air.
Okay. I think that would definitely be the route I want to go. I do have a random question. I don't know if this is like right for this, but I always thought it would be cool to do like a game inside a tin. And it was like with food, it's like it's tapas. It's kind of like a lunchbox. Granted, like tapas is a little too fancy, so maybe not for this game. But is that something you guys can do?
Yeah, and it might be something that you want to have quoted as like the deluxe version if all your stretch goals are unlocked. We have a tin supplier that we work with, and tin boxes are certainly cool. We can do custom embossing on them. So like if you want your logo to be popped off the top, that can be done. We can make custom shaped box designs, but we also have a bunch of standard ones that you can use. So Tin is totally an option. It's obviously more expensive than a regular chipboard 2-piece box,
Yeah.
but we certainly could look at that as the deluxe version of your game.
Very cool. So I think we got it all. I think we got the dice,
Okay.
board,
Okay.
which, I mean, it's just standard board, basically. It's just cut out a little funky. Is that going to be an issue, though, if I do go with the smaller box size? Because I know that a lot of the like trifolds or like quadrifolds or whatever you call them, are you able to do that if it's like a weird shape?
I'm going to say yes without seeing your artwork, but we can do custom die cut shapes, and we can then usually have them fold down to whatever needs to fit inside the box. But if you want to share your design with me, send me a screenshot of the artwork that you've got in mind and the shape, that I can take a look at it.
I can definitely send you all this after. No
Good.
worries. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is how we work at GPI, right? It's a conversation, and there's a lot of back and forth and finessing. Because we want you to make the best game possible, and not just try to shoehorn or pigeonhole your game into just a standard template of use this box size and you got to use this card size, and there's no custom anything. What we do is all custom everything.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's got Meeple, rulebook, all the other stuff. So is there anything that I should know that we didn't already cover?
Let me think. We talked about artwork. We talked about distribution in other countries, safety testing. It feels like it covers everything. The lead times, I think we covered that. I hope you added it up. I didn't ever give you the actual total, but if we're saying 30 days for tooling, 2 months for production, and another 2 months right now for shipping, 5 months in the best case scenario, assuming there's no like changes that need to be made in between those stages and or any delays in like the shipping beyond what we're already experiencing. So if you want these in the hands of backers, or at the very least in the hands of your fulfillment house before the holidays, then you gotta get going on your game right away.
You got it. I'll definitely send you that all. So yeah. And hey, why don't we shoot over to questions and end this role play then, since we have like 8 minutes? I know that there's one question of what would I do if I'm expecting quantities lower than 5,000?
There's a number of manufacturers out there that are able to produce games in less than 5,000. Right now, GPI is really fortunate that we're jam-packed with manufacturing jobs, and we just aren't able to handle any production quantities that are lower than 5,000. And it sounds kind of elitist a little bit, which I just want to explain why. It takes a lot of time to set up a printing press and any custom molds and an assembly line. And sometimes on the really small production runs, it might take more time to like set up a mold and then clean out the mold and get the machine ready for the next production run. It might take more time doing the setup and breakdown than the actual production process. So it's not like we're trying to just ignore people that are just getting started or anything like that. It's just a matter of efficiency.
No, that totally makes sense. And I will say, on the side of coordinating, it is hard. Like some people, it's going to take a lot longer, and some of these quotes are going to take a while. So it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah. Do we have any other questions from just anything we talked about?
Well, if we can see if any more come in, but if not, go to madebygpi.com and feel free to submit any questions there. We've got project managers here that are answering website inquiries, including Danielle and myself. So we're happy to answer any questions, whether we are going to be your manufacturing partner or not.
For sure. And we actually have some other services. So David, if you want to cover those while we're waiting to see if any other questions pop up.
Yeah, so GPI has been manufacturing stuff for several decades, and we've been in business for over 40 years now. And it's primarily been in the manufacturing services space. But in the last couple of years, we've added more services on the front end of the business, where we actually offer product development services, graphic design services, we've got an art director here on in-house that can do your artwork for you and work with artists that fit the style that you're looking for. We've got playtesting services, and of course the manufacturing, safety testing, logistics coordination that we've always offered. And even on the back end, we now have consulting services to help people bring their product to the world via distribution and rep groups. It's a consulting position that we help people start up. I mean, a lot of people that might be watching this right now, maybe it's just your dream to make a game and that's it. And then there's other people that are probably watching because they're ready to like start their dream of like launching a game company. And this is just the first game that is going to be released and many more to follow. And, GPI is looking for long-term relationships. So a number of our customers we've had for several years, so like almost 10 years is like the average length of time that we've got our customers. So we want to work with you and talk to you if that's what you're looking to do. If you're looking for a long-term relationship where you can kind of rely on us as a manufacturing partner so that you don't have to worry about the overseas headache stuff, and just hand it off to GPI and let us take care of it for you.
Yeah. And I mean, from the other side, I was a designer that when I first started designing 9 months in, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I reached out. I tried to find someone who could print me. I think it was like 1,000 copies because I had a friend who did the 5,000 and currently still has it in his garage and also some other places, probably some other people's garages. And I can tell you from trial and error, like, working with people that respond quickly to you. And I know because I answer my emails every day. Like every customer I have, I answer them every single day, which sometimes, I'm staying a little bit late, but it's nice compared to the almost like, is this manufacturer ghosting me? That's not a great feeling when you're trying to get those quotes. Or sometimes there's just like a lot of communication problems because you are working directly with China. But of course, a lot of people don't really recognize that you're in totally different like time zones. I know over here in the US, sometimes we'll have a call like at midnight because we're trying to make sure that something is done correctly. Because let's be honest, like a video call is going to do more than emails.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. It's easier to pick up the phone and talk to somebody here and then let them handle it for you and get back to you in the morning and tell you everything's good now, we fixed it.
Oh my God, no. Every time I'm doing my job, I'm like, oh my God, if only I had this person years ago when I was trying to figure this out. It would have saved me so much time and probably I would not have even started my Kickstarter. But I'm a designer. I am not a publisher and I have zero need or want to ever be a publisher. So all my publisher friends out there, like I love and appreciate everything you do. And thank you for always taking my pitches and meetings.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into making games. I mean, designing the game is obviously the fun part, and playtesting, making sure it works and seeing the reaction from friends. But taking the next step of saying, all right, I'm going to publish this, and now what? There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of different moving parts that are probably foreign to things that you're used to in your normal life. So that's what we're here to do, is kind of help guide you through that whole process.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, so many of us are from different backgrounds, so we can always, if we can't help you with one thing, we can probably point you in the right direction of something else.
That's a good point, yeah.
But yeah. And so we'll just wrap up with saying like who we are again. And hopefully you guys got a lot out of this panel. I know I did just from practicing and doing it right now.
Thanks again for watching. And again, I'm David Blanchard with GPI, and I can be emailed at david@madebygpi.com if you've got any questions. And thank you.
And I'm Danielle Reynolds. I work here at GPI too as a project coordinator, and you can reach out to me at danielle@madebygpi.com. Also check out our website if you are someone who is interested in playtesting some of the amazing games behind us. We do a lot of that. I will probably be the one reaching out to you and scheduling some of that upcoming in the future. So if you're trying to take your playtesting to the next level, you should definitely sign up and go to madebygpi.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.